you are done with this, there is something that you miss, and it's already late. Did you really think I'd wait? This is not my fault. This could be your fault. Look at what is brewing. Look at what is...
Welcome to another day. We were just a bit busy. Had to do some cleaning up, moving things around. You ever play that game as a kid, that little flat board, and it had a bunch of letters or numbers you had to get in order, but you could only move the little squares one at a time? Well, that's what this garage is like. You move this over here, so you can move that over there, so you can move this over here, so you can move that over there, so you can do this. You get the picture. At the moment, we've moved enough stuff around that we got out our motor hoist once again, and we've got this thing hanging. Yeah, that's progress. But we have it hanging, and I just got to get it positioned and get everything put back away that's everywhere at the moment. And then we got to start staging some parts. There's the start. All of this goes right on the motor, the starter, motor mounts, bell housing. All that goes on the motor. Couldn't go on before because of the stand actually bolts up to the places like where the bell housing bolts up to. And of course, where the motor mounts go to, they use those also. And we'll start staging everything, as I said. We'll stage this up right away. You know, stuff over there that we're going to have goes on later, and much later. We'll have just different, you know, stations ready to go. Prepping for the big lift here, I did take off a few extra pieces. Of course, the carburetors go. There's no reason to even think about having one like that on there. Just even if a chain was going from end to end and this wasn't an air gap, you just crush up your carburetor anyway. So that's gone. I got rid of the distributor. I've broken more distributor caps than I care to remember over the years, doing motors in and out, thinking, oh, I've got it, and all of a sudden you hear a little crack. It's the #1 firing position. No reason for any of it to be there. I get the impression that it may actually come in and out more than once. Fingers are crossed. Taped up all our holes. I don't want anything falling into the intake, even if it's a leaf. You know, stuff like that happens out here.
Deciding for the under, deciding that it's done. Sorry if it's rude, but you never.
Can't you believe I didn't have any bolts cleaned up for the motor mounts? I think some of the ones that were holding the stand on were actually for the motor mounts, but they look a little short for some reason. So I had to clean up some bolts and maybe put some paint on them before I install them. So.
This could be your fault. Look at what is proven. Look at what is done. Deciding for the under, deciding by. You haven't woken up. You're caught in dreams. You haven't driven yet.
Alright, with that done, I think we're pretty good to go. We got our motor mounts on, got our bell housing on, got our splash shield on. That thing's pain, man, I tell you. But once it's on, hopefully it'll never rattle, because I've had to pull the motor apart just because of that. Yeah, the splash shield actually, I don't know, somewhere along the crank actually touched it. It was going cling, 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 and about that loud. And I thought, it'll go away after a couple trips. It never went away. I ended up pulling the motor out. It was in the Beezy, actually. Ended up pulling the motor out, pulling out apart, putting it right back in. But as I said, we've got our bell housing on, got our starter on, got my oil tube finally straightened out. This is where it bolts up to on one of the motor mounts. Of course, without it there, it just swung everywhere, and that, with a stand hooked up to it, you couldn't leave it hooked up anyway. Problem is when I was moving the outdrive over here out of the way, I actually broke it off or at least the end. So I had to replace that also. And while I was at it, you know, you have one of those eureka moments, and I was looking at this stand and it only had one side. It's only bolted up right here. So I built this little bracket extension here. It'll allow it to still close up and clamp onto the coil, but at the same time it won't allow it to bounce up and down on this one side. Just another thing out of the way. You know, you don't know you need it until you need it. Like I said before, I didn't even have motor mount bolts. So we have motor mount bolts now and everything's in and installed. Took a little longer. It's almost dark, so we were going to call it a day, and we'll see you tomorrow. And welcome to another day. For being in the middle of summertime, you never guess it. Holy cow. At least it's not raining like this morning, but a high of 72 today. Yeah, 72 in the middle of summer in Maryland is, might as well be Arctic weather out here at this point. And as you can hear, it's about 30-mile-an-hour winds. I won't be setting a motor today. I don't have special assistance, and I would prefer that because, as I said, I figure that we're going to put this thing in once and then we're probably just going to have to pull it right back out. So we are going to use what we have, a little bit left of our afternoon here, because it's already almost 4 o'clock, and we're going to clean up some loose ends. Been saying that a lot, but you know, loose ends, I mean, that was a loose end. It's ready to go in a boat right now. I mean, it's literally hanging and ready to go into a boat. I do think I'm going to change the rigging a little bit though. I want to shorten it up a little bit here, so I'll end up taking my strap I made specifically for these air gap intakes, because you can go underneath of there. It's just basically a big loop, but I will take it and I'll take this loop off and I'll probably put it up here. That will shorten it up closer to the stand, and also I'm going to extend the stand out one click, whenever. I mean, it'll hold a ton out there. As I said, I've done all this extra bracing to it anyway. I've got pipes inside of it. I mean, it'll definitely hold that motor up. It shouldn't be nowhere near 1,000 pounds. That bell housing on the back of it is probably 20 pounds total. The standard long block is supposedly somewhere around 800 pounds. So, you know, we're right there, but we will be doing that tomorrow. As I said, I did get a few things in. One of them was this 8mm stainless steel rod, and that's what will be going in those manifolds, whether they like it or not. I also have the nuts that go with them, and we got a piece for our carburetor, and we may actually even get in the boat here eventually if the wind calms down later on this evening. Really just want to take a look around, make sure everything's ready to go. Once the motor's in, I mean, it's assembly. That's pretty much all of it in a nutshell. It's just assembly. I took this drill bit here, put my manifold and my riser on top of one another, dropped it in, got like a depth measurement, and went ahead and put it on one of these pieces of stainless steel rod I got of 8mm metric. Boy, is that stuff out of place in this garage. From there, went over here and grabbed my disc grinder, and basically just made 10 pieces this wide. As you can see, I just burned a groove in there and just started matching them up. Just kept it going in the groove. Makes real easy to cut. I don't know, what is this, all thread bar, I guess. And then from there, we got these lovely pieces over here, which I have 9 of them. Just happened to work out that way. I actually got one that's a little shorter too. Now I'll need to take each one of these guys over here to my bench grinder, which has a nice groove already ground into the wheel, because I'm either shortening or doing something with bolts all the time. I don't like them sticking out real far, and if I'm not sure of a size, if it's like a 5 or a 6 inch, I'll get the 6 inch as long as it's got enough thread on it, and I'll cut it off. So makes it real easy. It's a quick pass on each one of these, and it should turn out just like this guy here.
You're on a dream. You haven't woken up, you're caught in dreams. You haven't driven yet, you're on Or did you really think I'd wait? This is not my fault.
Okay, after about an hour, let's say, give or take a little bit, I have all my studs in for my risers. I know it seems a little extreme, but you gotta understand, these guys were left outside or something, and those little tiny holes and them fine threads, yeah, they got a little gummed up. So I used a battery brush of all things and brushed them all out on the inside and blew them out. Then I had to put, well, it shouldn't even say that. I mean, I only had like 2 or 3 that actually gave me a little bit of trouble. The rest of them almost all went in finger tight. So just had to back these in and out 3 or 4 or 5, 10, 12 times, wipe them off, put a little 3-in-1 back on them, drive them back in. And I shortened this one, and that one just a little bit for some reason. I guess this side was exposed or something, but it doesn't want to go all the way down. And I'm talking about, you know, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, which they already had about 1 inch into the manifold. So 3/4 of an inch would be fine, especially when it comes to a stud and a bolt. And they look a little long now, of course. They don't have any washers, they don't have any gaskets, and they don't have any nuts on them. So when you add all that up, it'll be fine. So that was a plus. And being that these guys, like I said before, Mercury's were once like $9 a piece for these things. $9. That's $90 worth of studs. Then you're talking about nuts, washers, everything else, shipping. And being it's come from a marine place, more than likely 2 or 3 weeks. You know, this was straight from a bolt company. Stainless steel, M8 rod. And I got 4 of them. Got 1 left over actually. At, I don't know, I think they're a foot a piece or something like that. 20 nuts and matching washers. I don't think I paid 25 bucks for the whole set. So, and that's including shipping. And being that I had to get this little fitting, which we're going to do next for that carburetor, it was all a plus. Just moving along steadily, as I said, just prepping up for tomorrow. Okay, got our new 8089 carburetor fuel injection banjo fitting in. Had to do a little bit of modifications with my disc grinder over here. Just had to take off a little bit. There was a chunk of casting or something right there, and I don't know whether it was meant to be there, so it locked it straight up and down or sideways. But I do want it to be a bit of an angle back, and the reason is over here where it comes up the motor, it's going to come up like this. So in which case it's going to kind of make a semi horseshoe there back towards the carburetor. If not, it's going to have to be straight up and down like that, which puts a lot of stress right in this area here. It'd just be much easier just to go this way. But with that down, we're going to move on to the next thing. As you just saw, we were mixing up paint. It's our famous Bilge coat. 4 parts gloss white Rust-Oleum mixed with 1 part gloss Allmand and a little bit of the, I guess it's Krylon acrylic hardener now, just to get it set up. We've let it set for about 20 minutes, and of course that is for our Bilge. I've already been out with a vacuum cleaner. It's the first time we've been in the boat in a couple months, and yeah, it's a bit dirty, but we definitely want to get a coat on that Bilge down there. Looks like we got a little bit of rust and what have you got loose on us, but you know, when you're building a boat, things like that happen. You're in here, you're doing something, it's like, yeah, that's got to come off, and I don't care, I ain't taking it out to do it. So lucky enough, it doesn't look like there's any rust or anything anywhere else, so that's just, you know, life of a Bilge in a boat. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my paint, get this painted up, and then we'll leave it sit overnight.
done with this, there is something that you miss, and it's already late. Did you read?
We went ahead and did 2 coats on the bilge. Took about 15 or 20 minutes. That stuff was dried up so fast because of all this wind. Plus it's real dry out right now because of the wind, I guess. And yeah, we got a second coat right on it. Looks a lot better, that's for sure. And we'll be good to go for tomorrow. Something else we decided to do while this has been, I don't know, a few months. We've gone through a winter since I've installed the transom shield. So I took out my big ratchet and I did about a quarter turn on each one, just to snug them up a little bit better, you know. And as I said, it's been out here for a couple, I guess it's 3 seasons now. We did it last fall. Here we are, summertime again. So I thought it was worthwhile. It's not something you do all the time, but since this was a new install, I thought, what the hell. But now I got to put this thing away. And 2 things. That motor box cover we made last year, for the enormous pain in the ass that it was. That is so cool. That thing's really cool. And also, we'll see you tomorrow.
You are done with this, there is something that you miss, and it's already late. Did you really think I'd wait?
And welcome to another day. Another breezy and loud one, apparently. But neighbors got to do what neighbors got to do. As you can see, we have our motor out today. I don't take this thing out of the garage unless I'm seriously thinking about doing something with it, because it's such a pain to get. It doesn't look like much of a hill, but it's a hill. It's a drag. We had to do a little alteration to the trailer down here. That little leg or whatever it was for that bunk stuck down just a little too far. Wasn't a big deal when the boat was on the trailer, and it wasn't like it was going to snag the road or anything, but it may actually catch this motor hoist. I don't want to even play with it. I'm not going to use it any more of that adjustment. I mean, the boat's it. I mean, I'm not changing the trailer for anything. At this point, we've got everything opened up. Got our battery boxes out of the way. Bilge turned out pretty nice, even though it's got some stuff flown into it already, but at least we know it's all nice and sealed up and dry, and it's not stuck to paint. It's actually just sitting on it. Grabbed out some hoodies and a couple sweatshirts. They're more than just keeping you warm. They can also protect a boat while you're dragging a motor over top of a transom. And that's our goal for the day, pretty much. It is an accomplishment all by itself, and as I said, the real goal is just to get it in, fit it up. I'm not even worried about bolting it up or anything like that. I just want to suck it up to the transom, get it set down on the feet, and find out exactly how it wants to sit and where it wants to sit, and then do the adjustments and the aluminum plates and everything like that after the fact. So, here we go.
My fault. This could be your fault. Look at what he's proven. Look at what he's done. Deciding for the under. Deciding that he's done. Sorry if it's rude, but you never learned not to.
And you win some, and you lose some. Everything went great until we got to this point. Now you'd be like, okay, well, just drop it down and let it slide into the transom over here and you're done. Issue is, it's already sitting on the motor mounts. This is a bad situation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the feet off. It's actually crooked right now, so it's a little too far over on this side. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the feet off. And I'm going to try to get it straightened out down here and find out just how much lower those motor mounts need to be. I may have tall motor mounts on the motor itself. I'm not sure. I think mine are shorter over here on my 19. I will take a look at that eventually here, but at the same time, it's just in the back of my mind of how, when, and where I can find these motor mounts, because the reality is it took me weeks to find these. I mean, yeah, I can go ahead and drop $500 on it and find a set, but you know, we're not into that kind of stupid thinking. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to have to jack it up a little bit here. I'm going to get the feet off, I'm going to get it adjusted out a little bit, see if I can get it straightened out, and then I'll find out how bad it really is. I was over looking at the mini fiberglass Freedom machine. I couldn't really figure this out because I need to drop about 2.5 inches. If I take 2.5 inches out of this block, I'm going to be down here. There's only going to be about 4 inches left. That's absolutely not what I wanted to do. There's not enough to hold what I need to hold. I'm talking about a big block here that likes to bounce up and down when you're going over them waves. So I've come to the conclusion that I have the wrong motor mounts, because after looking at the 19, the stanchions, they come out, you know, these rods here, they come out pretty much straight off this bolt. A little bit, you know, tiny bit lower, but just right about off that bolt. This one comes off all the way down here, in which case that gives me about 3 inches, and it's exactly what I'm missing. That's why I was just so perplexed. I mean, I can get it, you know, I'm probably going to shorten these by about 1/2 inch anyway, just because I have enough adjustment and all that good stuff. And it's real close. I think it would benefit from going down just a tad more in the nose. But I'm also, in perfect honesty, I missed the back half too, because where they're going to sit, the back hole is off there, which is not a big deal actually. In my boat, my 19, they have aluminum plates, but they come off the front a little too far, and there's a through bolt through the aluminum plate. Then there's a lag bolt on, which would be this side, that goes into the wood, and then there's another lag bolt that holds an aluminum plate to the wooden motor mount, and then there's 2 more lag bolts that come in on this side. So it would be salvageable. I mean, if this was the only thing that was between me and actually dropping this motor in, I'd probably be putting this plate on and through bolting this backside and just lag bolting this backside and this side. But since I got to do that anyway, and the motor has to come out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extend this motor mount same way on the other side. Came up 1 inch short. I went this way too far, I guess. Looking like maybe by about 1 inch, which, remember, we're all guessing here. I was measuring off a transom that almost didn't exist at the time. So it's a mistake. It's a drawback. It's probably going to cost about $150 and probably some time and some labor to fix these motor mounts to where, you know, I'll have the opportunity, I might as well take it. And I can go ahead and I can get the aluminum plates put on them and everything else now, because that was my fear, is that one of these motor mounts would have been wicked out of, you know, shape or whatever, and if I had aluminum plates on them now, I'd been really screwed up. So that's the plan. Now I got to get this guy out again, and we're going to get him back in the garage, because as I said, there's a couple things that need to be done at this point. Also, on the good side, I did figure out where my water pickup's going to go, so we can just put that in over there when we get a chance. Don't have to worry about all the rest of this stuff in the way, and we'll get back at this again.
This is not my fault.
It's empty in there. Once again, we are back in the garage. And I'm not going to look at it badly. I mean, I expected it to come back out at least once, and it definitely is got to come back out. I probably could have done this work. I mean, if I was like hanging from a tree at my neighbor's house and I just had to drop this thing in and leave it, I could fight around it. It would have been a nightmare, beyond a nightmare, and probably pretty dangerous. So it was much better just to pick it back up, pull it back in here. I'm going to go ahead and order the right motor mounts, another $157. Yeah, just after looking at my 19, I knew there was something wrong. I just looked at these mounts and I thought these were way too tall. These probably would have worked in a race boat, being that those stringers are like 14 or 15 inches tall, but not in this boat. As I said, I can't have that motor going, I mean, it'll be doing enough of that on its own. If, you know, it was up on plane, it would be sticking up almost at 90 degrees. So we're going to avoid that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this 19 put away. And then I got to get my lawnmower put away. And then I got to get this stuff put away. And that stuff put away. And that stuff put away. And welcome to another day. Thought this garage was screwed up before. This garage, everything has its place, and pretty much that's the only place for it at the moment. I know this motor was sitting here before, but I moved everything to get it out. You know, I have to get rid of all this stuff here and everything else. So now all that stuff has to temporarily go back, because at some point I know I'm going to be pulling this motor back out again. Just a little overwhelmed with our magnitude of destruction here. But speaking of destruction, we're going to have to do some destruction. And as you can see, we have a couple of implements of destruction that I didn't think I'd ever see with this boat once again. But what has to be done. And the reality is it probably didn't even have to be done. As I said before, if this was stopping me from being on the water, it probably wouldn't have stopped me. But being that I have to wait for the new motor mounts to arrive, I have the materials, I might as well do it. And not only that, but I probably would have done it anyway. I don't know. It's a toss-up, to be honest. As I said, with my boat, the aluminum plates, the L brackets, they go on here and they just stick off too far, and then they through bolt one end of the motor mount and they lag bolt the other end. In that case, it's worked out fine with a big block Chevy for 15 plus years. And I don't treat my boat, you know, I treat it well. Don't get me wrong, but I don't baby it. You know, that's not my forte. These things are made to drive. But as I said, I've got the time, I've got the motor out. It had to come out anyway, as I said. But bottom line is, I've got a lot of stuff out. I'm going to have to take about a ½ inch right off the top. That way it'll give me a little bit more adjustment up and down for the motor on the front. Like I was saying yesterday, I really think that the motor could benefit from being down just another ½ inch maybe. So that'll give me that play, plus the motor mounts themselves, the feet, they actually have adjustment on them, so they go up and down at least an inch. So that should be fine. And plus I have to put this big 1/4 inch L bracket in there too, which is going to raise it another 1/4 inch. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. It really needs to be knocked down a ½ inch, maybe a little more, but by the time I get all the glass and stuff back on it, it'll probably be back up to a ½ inch. I also want to put a cap on the one end so it'll be long enough towards the transom. Lots of work to do.
But you never learn not to, and your words don't mean much. When you fell, I was the crush. This is not my fault. This could be.
We are steadily making progress here. First I cut it, then I used a big chisel and I knocked the top off. Then I took my disc grinder here, made a huge mess, ground everything up. Now I've gone ahead and Took a bunch of Cabochon, some chop strain in a bucket, and some resin. Mixed all that up. Got it nice and stiff like a putty. Just smeared the back of it, of this board here. I got a 1-inch board on this end. Smeared the whole back side of it. Smeared the inside of it. Crammed a bunch of it in all the corners. And then used one of those squeeze clamp things. And just squeezed it nice and tight. Let it set up. Then what was a little bit was left over where it was chunky at on the top, I used all that chop strand and such to fill in the top here, and that one also, which maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, worst case. And then just for fun, for craps and giggles, I went ahead and just mixed up a little bit of Cabochon resin just to feather everything out before I do a final sand and start laying some glass. And some of it looks a little thick. It was just, I had a ton of it, so I was just laying it on. I'd rather have way too much and sand some off than not have enough and say, damn, I wish I would have put more here. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, is just waiting for this stuff to kick off. I would believe this one in the sun probably already has kicked off. That one over there, maybe a little tacky still. That's the game plan once that kicks off. Of course, I'll be over here with my disc grinder. And hopefully, I really don't want to be laying glass in the sun. I mean, it's no big hurry at this point. And the big hurry for me was just making the huge mess. Once the huge mess is made, then you start cleaning up and you're making progress. That's what I like. So I'm gonna go kick back and listen to a couple songs for about 15 or 20 while it does kick off, and then I'll be back on it.
Look at what is proven. Look at what is done. Deciding for the under. Deciding by. You haven't woken up. You're caught in dreams.
We didn't get as far as we hoped for, but we got far enough that we're happy, that's for sure. We're just not able to sand them down and get all the dirty work done tonight. Just the way it is. Once the sun, and this one went off like crazy. I mean, it's in the sunlight, that stuff really does. It just goes bananas. This one over here I did second, and yeah, it's still, you know, if I hit it with any sandpaper or anything, it would just immediately gum it all up. There's no reason to rush it at this point. We might as well just wait till tomorrow and probably just have another dirty day, but it won't be nearly as dirty. I mean, we won't be pulling out a skill saw and SawZaws and all that stuff, but we'll get that taken care of hopefully, and then get it repainted up. Then it's time to put some aluminum on it, and then guess what? We'll see you tomorrow. Woody says goodbye also. Alright, we're going to do this for if we use music. So I leave Journey on, including where my oil filter stand. Shit, didn't get it. We're going to pause that because it's very distracting. I don't really care about it anymore because copyrights don't mean. Now we'll do this one if we don't use music. Okay, you just saw Alright, we want to try this again? Okay, let's try it all over again. What the hell are these birds doing? Alright, we want to try this again? I'm not even sure anymore. That ain't gonna work. Do it again. And if it's out of the driveway, it's out of the garage. I don't think I did any of that. Let's do it all over again. I know, those cars are crazy, aren't they? You probably can't see that. There's a deer right there in the woods, or underneath that tree. A doe, a deer. He seems very interested in me for some reason. Let the plane go by as my battery dies.